Happy Wednesday and welcome to The Breakdown. I am Tara Setmayer and this is the Rick Wilson. And we are 13 days away, folks. 13 until Election Day. And tonight, because we know that a lot of people have trepidation, they're looking at the news, what the hell's going on at the polls, we have our Lincoln Project legal advisors joining us. And we're going to dedicate this show to answering a lot of your questions about legal aspects of the election and what's happening. So we're going to be joined by our Lincoln Project attorney, Mario Nicholas, and LP senior legal advisor, Kathleen Warner. And they're going to preview some of what we're doing on Election Day and after. So stay tuned for them in a little bit. And as always, we want to hear from you. So you can hashtag Ask the Breakdown, send us a tweet, ask a question, particularly if we're very interested tonight, obviously, about election voter fraud, election suppression, those types of things, because we've got the lawyers here with us. So ask the breakdown, or you can go old school and call us and send us a voicemail at our voicemail number. And I think we're also doing live callers. Yes, live callers are back. You can call in and we will bring you on air with us and you get to ask us a question in person. So there is that. Now, Rick, have you been paying attention to Grandpa
Tara, how
Trumpy?
are you tonight?
Grandpa Grumpy Trumpy has been on a tear lately, and he's very, very upset.
Grandpa Ranty is having a bad day.
Yes, he's upset with lots of folks. We have a list.
So many people.
So many.
You have a list? I love that. Let's do the list.
We're calling it
Let's do our list.
The list. As I was reading that before we put it up, I was like, it just keeps going. It keeps going. And at the same time, while he is so.
Right. Go.
No, say it, Rick.
This is a guy who all the things flying apart around him now. A lot of people try to keep analogizing this to 2016, but it's not. In 16, He'd basically just gone on a glide slope. He didn't care. Now he cares. Now if he loses, it matters. And so he is acting out in a way that is both visible and horrific at the same time. And people they're having two reactions now. Republicans are reacting with like complete shock. They're like, "Oh, F, this is done." And everyone else in the country's like, who is this child? So anyway, moving on.
Everyone who's not in the Trump cult, we've been watching this petulant child ever since he came down the escalator and, acted like an ass on his way into the presidency in January 2017. And we said, oh my God, 4 years of this. So it's not a shock to us. It might be a shock to the people who thought that he would ever make the famous presidential pivot that never happened, that those people are still waiting for, hoping, praying he'll be that presidential pivot tomorrow night during the debate. Guess what, folks? That's not going to happen. But you know who is acting presidential? Right. You know who's acting presidential? Joe Biden. He is out there adulting.
It's Joseph.
There is only one America. No Democratic rivers. No Republican mountains. Just this great land. And all that's possible on it. With a fresh start. Cures we can find. Futures we can shape. Work to reward. Dignity to protect. There is so much we can do if we choose to take on problems and not each other, and choose a president who brings out our best. Joe Biden doesn't need everyone in this country to always agree. Just to agree we all love this country, and go from there.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
So I saw that ad and, of course, got weepy because I'm a big sap. And then when I heard and realized it was Sam Elliott, I realized that the dude abides. And that is a joke for all
Let
of the
me just
folks
say,
out there who know about the dude.
let me just say this about any ad with Sam Elliott doing the voiceover is always 100% better. And dear viewers, stay tuned. But let me say this about Donald Trump and the reactions he's having and the terrible, awful, no good week he's having in preparation for a debate which has going to have a mute button on his microphone, which is something that Donald Trump loathes with the fire of 1,000 suns. This is a campaign flying apart. It is fracturing. It is broken at the edges. It is broken in the center. This is a campaign with no organizational premise any longer. Bill Stepien and Jared Kushner and Jason Miller, who are the troika that runs this operation, are now fighting. They're now on separate pathways. They're all trying to go out and spin to reporters that they're the ones they were the smart one. If only Bill had listened to me, says Jason. If only Jason listened to me, said Bill, and blah, 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 back and forth. There's no predicate here. There's no campaign here. There's no closing argument. The classic closing argument in a referendum campaign, which all incumbent campaigns are referendums on that person's performance, is to say the line that everyone's had beaten into them their whole lives. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Well, the answer is unquestionably no in this country. We have over 225,000 people who have passed because of COVID and Donald Trump's mishandling thereof. We have 100,000 plus small businesses that have gone bankrupt. We have accumulated debt and deficits in a scope that is unimaginable. We have a nation that is torn apart by Donald Trump's racial animus and by his promotion of the most vile parts of our society. We have corruption that is so unbelievably rampant that Washington is clearly for sale. And this is a swamp that was never drained. This is an economy that was never really truly uplifted except through some juicing along the way with some steroids from the Fed. This is a president who has failed in every way. And now he is failing mentally. His campaign has failed. They are broke and they are broken. These guys they're about to crash the plane into the runway. You know, as a pilot, you always make that sort of grim joke. You don't want to run out of airspeed, altitude, and ideas all at the same time. Well, that's what the Trump campaign has done. That is the collapse they are experiencing right now. This is a moment where Joe Biden was confident enough to run an ad like that, which wasn't saying, Donald Trump is a terrible human being. The country's made up its mind. Donald Trump is defending. He was in Gastonia, North Carolina today. That's not exactly a purple area or a blue area. He's not trying to expand his base. He's not trying to win this election. He's trying to save a very narrow slice of a few places to hold on to power. Texas is tied in polling, folks. Today, Quinnipiac, Texas is tied.
That's unbelievable.
If you're Donald Trump and you're out of money and you're tied in Texas and you've lost the momentum of any kind of comeback in the Rust Belt, you're going to gamble everything tomorrow night on throwing haymakers at Joe Biden. You're going to gamble everything tomorrow night at screaming and bellowing about this made-up Russian intelligence operation with Hunter's laptop, which was brought to you by Yakshima's Rudy Giuliani, new star of Borat Part 2. And we're going to see more desperation in the coming weeks. Now, folks, I want to say this also, because I'm on a roll here now. Do not take any of this for granted. The time when you're winning, the time when you're defeating an enemy, is not the time to stop. Keep voting, get out there, encourage your friends, encourage your family. If your early vote isn't cast yet, get it turned in, get it mailed, get it dropped. If you're going to vote in person early, get out there now. I talked to a friend of mine in Florida today who said there were over 250 people in a line where in 2016, about 450 people voted early the whole time. So this is going to be a requirement for all of us to continue the motivation, to continue the pace. When your enemy's on the run, when your enemy is breaking, you don't stop. You roll them up. You drive them into the sea. That's the motivation here, folks. We've got to get out there every day between now and November 3rd. And it's only 12 more days to go, guys. We can all do it. I know you're tired. We're tired. Everybody's beat down. But this thing is in sight. The Trump campaign is collapsing. We're going to help keep making it collapse every day. I'm going to keep pouring gas on the fires of these people every day. We have media coming out in Washington that's going to drive Trump out of his mind even further. We want to precipitate the breakdown of Donald Trump. We want to precipitate the end of Trumpism. We want to hurt these people in ways politically that they have never imagined they could be hurt. We want to drive this foul and this revolting practice, this belief set that is based on authoritarian statism into the dustbin of history. And thus, I have ranted.
And a glorious.
Can we have a meanwhile so I can have a break and drink some of this delicious latte?
Indeed, we do, because it actually fits right into what you were talking about as Donald Trump continues to rage on and act more erratically and like a child, stomping around. Tomorrow night, he's, I suspect, after everything that's gone on today, which we'll get into in a little bit, that he will be acting more let Trump be Trump. Remember that? Well, how's that been working out for you? Roll it.
Meanwhile, from Trump's flailing campaign.
Have you seen what's been going on? How well we're doing?
That's a solid national lead for Joe Biden.
The president's in trouble right now.
Nobody wants me. Nobody. I had it made. I wasn't coming to Erie. I mean, I have to be honest. There's no way I was coming. I didn't have to. And then we got hit with the plague.
With COVID, is there anything that you think you could have done differently? If you had a mulligan or a do-over on one aspect of the way you handled it, what would it be?
Not much.
But mishandling the pandemic isn't enough for Trump. On top of that, he's still trying to take away your health care.
You have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks. I'll be signing it sometime very soon.
In the coming, I would say, 2 weeks.
With how many days left? 13 days to go.
Early voting is happening now. Don't wait. Vote.
Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country.
Yes, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, folks. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad the crew was able to put that in, because how many times have we heard the 2 weeks joke?
Love it.
And it's a glorious reference to the money pit, which is about what the Trump campaign is right now. It's a money pit. They blew $1 billion, people, $1 billion. It's remarkable.
$1 billion with a B.
That's right, with a B. More money than Donald Trump is actually worth. A couple other things that we didn't get a chance to talk about last night, which was this idea that Donald Trump has been going after Joe Biden over China with these bullshit attacks against the Bidens on China and how corrupt they are. And they wanted to change the subject from Russia to China. That was something that was a coordinated strategy by the Trump campaign months ago. And of course, coronavirus gave them an entree to do this. So it's all been China, China, China. Well, guess who has a freaking bank account in China? Donald Trump. Why? Because of course he does. Of course. Every single time Donald Trump accuses someone of doing something corrupt, criminal, shady, unethical, unscrupulous, it's because he's doing it himself 10 times over. Yep. So the idea that, and shout out to the New York Times, they have been doing intrepid reporting on this. This is another part of their series that they've released since they have access to Trump's tax returns. And they're just releasing it bit by bit. And this is just another thing, another grand hypocrisy coming out of the Trump campaign with him trying to do business in China. He actually paid more taxes to China to the tune of $189,000 than he has to the U.S. Treasury. $750 to the U.S., $189,000 to China, because he was trying to do business there for years, including getting money in 2017 after he took the presidency. Rick, what do we even
Tara,
say to this?
I want to make a point about the what you just said. You're absolutely correct. Donald Trump projects like no other human being on earth. If Donald Trump makes a comment about anyone that is in any way negative, it is something about himself trying to get out. It's always that way. And I've talked to two different people today, one of whom is a very experienced American tech entrepreneur, very wealthy guy. You would know who I'm talking about if I mentioned his name. I'm not going to bust him because he's a friend of ours. Said to me today, he said Donald Trump was trying to get in the hotel and real estate business in China.
Right.
He said, if you trace it back, you will find he paid prodigious, enormous bribes to people trying to get into that business. That he had, and that the Chinese would have dragged it out as long as they could and collected as much as they could from him. And right now, he said their play right now would be to quietly say to the family, hey, by the way, we love you still. We know it was all an act. Don't go too far with Xi in the last couple of weeks of your campaign and your candidacy, and everything will be okay for Trump Tower Beijing. So the idea that Trump just went over there and did a little scouting and left 189 grand in the bank to pay for some taxes, no, BS. There is something more here. There will always be something with them. There's always a scuzzy layer beneath the scuzzy layer. It's like being an archaeologist in a septic system. There's always a layer of additional crap below the crap you're disgusted by right now. It's always that way with this guy.
And you know what else, Rick? Don't forget Ivanka and her trademarks, right?
Oh yes.
Remember that whole thing when Xi was at Mar-a-Lago and he was eating the greatest chocolate cake ever when there was a national security issue going on, and Trump was like, "Oh no, that was with Xi or was that with the Japanese prime minister?" But regardless,
no, that was Xi.
And Ivanka brought her kids because isn't she teaching them Mandarin or something or some bullshit like that? And then like a couple days later, Ivanka gets a dozen trademarks approved in China for her businesses, from everything from like caskets to voting machines. It was very bizarre. But and then the whole thing was ZTE. The whole with that whole thing, that Chinese telecom company ZTE, which was under federal sanctions, and let's try to ease those sanctions. Donald Trump wanted to. Now we know why. We know why he's been kissing ass up to Putin and to Xi and to Erdogan. It goes back to what Miles Taylor told us and what he told me when I interviewed him and what he has said in public, that there were people in the national security space who were very worried about Donald Trump's motivations for kissing up to these dictators because they believed that it was all about setting himself up for his own business. His business interest came first before the security of the American people. And this is another example of that.
Count on it every time.
Every time.
But, Tara, as bad a day as Trump has had today, no one's had a worse day. Look, folks, if you think you had a bad day, if you think something went wrong in your life today, you know what didn't happen to you unless you're one person in this country? You didn't discover that you were going to be in the new Borat film, filmed in a hotel room with your hand down your pants, playing with your junk, with a woman you thought was 15 or 17 years old, and the subject of the most perfect final moment of everything Trump touches dies as an iron law of the political universe. The president's free lawyer, my old boss, Rudy Giuliani, today has become probably the most pitied and yet reviled figure in American political life. I mean, this is a guy who makes Jeffrey Toobin look like the luckiest son of a bitch on earth right now.
For those folks, who don't know,
don't worry, we'll have video tomorrow.
Yeah. For those who have not paid attention to what happened today with Rudy Giuliani, we all know Borat. And we all know about his pranking shenanigans and what he's done over the years. And the sequel to his movie is now out on Amazon. And for those who've already seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. For those who have not seen the movie, the news came out about this scene where Rudy Giuliani is being interviewed by a fake reporter who looks very young, very Tommy Lahren-like, with an Eastern European accent, flirting with him and enticing him. And this was in a hotel room where they were shooting this. And there you have it. the still photograph after she said, "You want to have a drink? Let's have a drink." And he lays down on the bed and proceeds to engage in what looks to be like he's pleasuring himself to the description that Rick Wilson so brilliantly gave us. And then Borat jumps in and disrupts everything, and Rudy runs off. This is terrible for him. And I really hope that this is the end of Rudy Giuliani being taken seriously in any capacity. I mean, honestly, Rick.
Where else will the president go for another free TV lawyer?
Only the best people, Rick.
Where else will he go for
the best people?
Only the best people.
Oh my God. Well, speaking of only the best people.
Oh man.
Guess who hit the campaign trail today? Former President Barack Obama. He has come out of retirement and in the final stretches of this campaign to be the best possible surrogate for the Biden-Harris campaign ticket, which will make Trump even grumpier because we all know how much he just loves Barack Obama. And Barack Obama went off. This is something that is not normal, okay? Former presidents almost never get involved at this level in a presidential campaign to help someone else. But ain't nothing normal about what we're doing. And Barack Obama went in, as the young folks say. He went off on Trump in ways that really no president has ever done before. He talked about how he was a failed reality show host with low ratings. He talked about what a joke what he's doing is, how he's not acting like an adult, how he's failed on COVID. I mean, he went down the list. There was something else that he said that he said, because with Joe and Kamala at the helm, you're not going to have to think about the crazy things they said every day. You'll be able to go about your lives knowing that the president is not going to retweet conspiracy theories about secret cabals running the world, or that the Navy SEALs didn't actually kill Osama bin Laden. It was glorious. And I can tell you now.
It was tightly done.
Oh, it was a takedown. And this was in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, a key swing state where we see that Trump is ahead by 10 points. that Biden is ahead by 10 points. But, that doesn't mean anything. Keep voting. But it was on purpose because the campaigns, both of them know that Pennsylvania is super important. And so, guess what? So you have Obama out here. He's kicking ass and taking names. Great surrogate for Joe Biden. And the Trump campaign was whining and complaining and had the nerve to say that the reason why Barack Obama is being out there on the campaign trail is because Joe Biden can't hack it. He's too frail. He needs to bring in Obama to take up the slack for him because he can't handle it. That's the reason. They really put out a campaign letter about this. I don't think it quite had the reaction they thought that it would have. What do you think, Rick?
Have you noticed something about these letters? Does the person writing these press releases speak English as a third language or something? They are so badly written and so poorly constructed. It's almost incomprehensible. It's like they throw in nouns, verbs, Barack Obama, and Antifa in every one of them in a random order, and they're like some kind of strange word vomit.
It floats
no,
from the
Terry,
head.
you're right. I mean, look, Barack Obama is one of the great political orators of our lifetimes, and he is a man who goes out there and has a very articulated and considered approach to any problem. And we can disagree with him on policy things, but the guy can deliver a hell of a stem-winding speech. Okay, and Donald Trump was speaking elsewhere when Barack Obama gave those remarks today. And he's probably right about now on Air Force One headed back to Washington, watching that on his TiVo, and steam is coming out of his ears or his wherever, because he is going to lose his mind. That one will chew on him. That one will be like acid on Barack Obama. Talking about Donald Trump will be like acid on Trump. He can't resist it. He'll turn his fire on him, which was exactly the plan.
Indeed. I suspect that we are not going to see a more presidential Donald Trump tomorrow night because you have Barack Obama getting in his ass.
He could pivot anytime now, Tara.
Yeah, he's got terrible poll numbers. And we're going to bring in our next guest and talk about what's happening with the election interference and Christopher Wray and the FBI director. I mean, it has just not been a good day for Donald Trump. And I suspect that he will carry that grumpiness into tomorrow night's debate, which we hope, because the more he acts like a jackass, the better it is for America, because then we'll vote him out. Let's segue and bring in our guests.
Segue. Did you say segue?
Bullshit.
That's about what happened coming
yes,
up Air
I'm
Force
12
One.
years old.
Oh, tonight's guests are two members of the Lincoln Project's stellar legal team. We have Mario Nicholas and Kathleen Warner joining us. Mario is Lincoln Project's lead counsel, and Kathleen is our senior legal advisor. Welcome to the breakdown, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Before we begin, folks, I just want to say one thing really quickly. Kathleen, and we do this every night, but I want to make sure we make it clear every night. Kathleen and I are here in our secret mountain lair. We are a COVID pod. We get tested all the time. In fact, today we got probed up the nose as usual. So we are in a tight COVID pod. We encourage you guys to take COVID seriously. It is surging across the country and in many states right now. We take it very seriously. We try to be very disciplined about mask wearing whenever we're not on set. We try to be very disciplined about hand washing and all the other things and social distancing. We try to minimize our outside world contact as much as we can, because we'd like to stay in the fight for the next 13 days and fight Donald Trump instead of COVID. We encourage you guys to do the same.
Indeed. As we say, we practice what we preach on the pirate ship. So guys, I'm going to start with you, Kathleen. Ladies first here. Voters have been out there voting in droves, record-setting early voting. There's a number of reasons why, but all of them are good if the result is that more people are voting. But along with that comes the concern, as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, about these efforts of voter suppression, efforts of polling shenanigans in certain polling places, whether it's the long lines or consolidating areas where people can vote. We can go down the list of different things. Some of these groups have been threatening intimidation, right? And then we heard today, now we have some interference going on, which is what happened in 2016. And we can talk a little bit about how extensive that was with actual penetrations into voter rolls and cybersecurity. But now we find out that there have been actual attempts. It's my understanding that, and I'm not sure, did we actually see a copy of these fake emails that were being sent out? Is that true? Were any? Yes,
we have. I mean, it's been over the press, hitting voters in Florida and in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Alaska.
Right.
Which has been super interesting. I think that the thing there is that it was uncovered. And, officials, FBI, state officials immediately brought it to attention because, voter interference is a federal crime. It is illegal for people to interfere or intimidate anybody in their right to vote. And I have to say, it's been impressive to hear, across the country, the elected officials within Pennsylvania and other places say, that they're going to take this very seriously and look deeply into it and address, frankly, what's disinformation. What's also, in some ways, people like Governor Abbott in Texas, they're the biggest threat right now, frankly, to voters actually having a fair shake to get out their vote and have their vote counted. And so we're focused, in a number of different ways in states we really care about. So we're looking at all different angles, Tara.
So let me explain further what we were talking about. So today it was uncovered that these emails that were being sent, these intimidation emails were being sent out to voters in the states you just mentioned, allegedly from the Proud Boys, and we all know who they are. And it was saying basically, if you better vote for Donald Trump or else. And it was uncovered, and there was some suspicion that it wasn't actually from the Proud Boys, that it was something, it originated internationally. And in fact, it did. So Iran was behind this attack. And also, the FBI director and the director of national intelligence came out and they gave a press conference on this. One was less political than the other. I guess you can guess who that was. The DNI was very political in his statements, but Christopher Wray, the FBI director, was a straight shooter and very clear-eyed and full-throated about what's happening here. And he said that any misinformation around the election results, he said to be rest assured that the feds are on it. Here's a clip from Christopher Wray today.
We've been working for years as a community to build resilience in our election infrastructure, and today that infrastructure remains resilient. You should be confident that your vote counts. Early, unverified claims to the contrary should be viewed with a healthy dose of skepticism. We encourage everyone to seek election and voting information from reliable sources, namely your state election officials, and to be thoughtful, careful, and discerning consumers of information online.
So it's encouraging that the feds are on it. They are disregarding Donald Trump's attempts to play this down. It was reported tonight, just before we went on air, by Josh Dawsey over at the Washington Post, that Donald Trump is effing furious with Chris Wray for doing this. He's been upset with Wray for a long time because he's not loyal enough and not doing these political investigations into the Bidens or whoever else, and that he wants to fire him. And surprise with that. And one last thing, this is now another example. Recently, there were two GOP operatives, these idiots, Jacob Wohl and Jack, what's his name, Berkman.
Berkman.
These two idiots were sending out robocalls in places in Detroit, targeting Black communities in Detroit and Wisconsin. They got caught in Detroit, threatening people that if they voted by mail, that their private information would be revealed, and that if they had outstanding warrants or debt collectors, that they would find them and come for them. Again, another example where the feds uncovered this nefarious plot, and that's a domestic threat to what's going on in voter suppression. So it's encouraging to see that these things are at least being uncovered. But let's bring Mario into the conversation. Rick, go ahead.
So Mario, one of the questions I've had about in the last couple of weeks is the degree to which the election day window is going to be fraught with chaos. Can you talk a little bit about the strategies that we're going to be employing on election day to sort of give people a little more confidence in where we're headed, and the kind of steps, the kind of things we might face from bad actors in the Trump side of this, and the kind of things we're going to do as countervailing measures from the Lincoln Project and other allied groups?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the things that's really important for us to all realize is that what they want the most is for you not to vote. And that's the thing we have to do. That's the thing that everyone here has to do. You have to go out and vote. You have to stand in line and wait. You have to vote. If you need to go through to your county clerk or a quarter, go vote. Because these people who are trying to intimidate people, it's really actually one of the important things to realize is it's only a very small minority. They get blown up a lot on social media, but when they make these bad actors and they do this intimidation. I saw a thing earlier today about a guy in a Trump mask with a toilet, and it said Biden votes here, and he was standing outside of lines. That gets blown up, and a lot of people are like, oh, I can't go to the vote. No, go to the polls, go show up. Because what happens is you have people like sheriffs who are going to the polls, and they're kind of going around, and the police know that they're there, and they're going to escort them out. Furthermore, Lincoln Project, we have teamed with a group called csay2020.com, and everyone should go and visit that site just to take a look. It's called csay2020.com. We are actually having them, if you go there, you can take a video, you can drop a note about any sort of voter intimidation or issues, even long lines, things of that nature, and it'll be put on a map. And it's something that we'll be able to make sure that people understand and can see, and that authorities see. That's one of the things that we're doing. As far as the Lincoln Project on the legal side, what we're doing directly, we're working with lawyers in states across the country to make sure that we have people in place so that if something comes up and we can be helpful, we can be people who can jump in and help out on legal arguments, we're prepared to do that. We've been working with people in Pennsylvania. We've been working with attorneys in Texas. We've been working with attorneys in Florida and Arizona and Nevada. We are going to make sure that people have the right to vote, and when they want to exercise it, they can. To play on Tara's reference to the Big Lebowski, the Lincoln Project is like the rug. We bring the country together.
I love it. Thank you for the Big Lebowski reference. It is one of the greatest
Listen, any
movies.
Big Lebowski references are always welcome on this show.
Yes, someone got it. Someone else got my Dude Abides reference in the beginning of the show with Sam Elliott. So, Mario, thank you for that.
Movie got me through law school.
Yes. Oh my God. I started drinking White Russians because of that stupid movie for a while there. I went through this White Russian phase. I had to cut that out because I gained like 15 pounds drinking them. But yeah, White Russians and the Dude. And you know what? Prayers to Jeff Bridges. He was just diagnosed with lymphoma. So prayers to him for that, and hopefully he recovers. He's a great actor and a great human being, from what I understand in real life, which is cool. But so prayers to him on that. Kathleen, we know that the threat of violence, and Mario touched on it a little bit, but the threat of violence on Election Day, we've had folks call in that are volunteer poll workers that have expressed like genuine fear and concern that something might happen to them on Election Day. And I tried to reassure them that local officials have this under control and for them not to be fearful. But can you explain a little bit about what that would look like, or how, like, reassure our poll worker supporters out there and voters who are going to vote that the threat of violence is not something that should deter them, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the threat itself is a way to suppress. I mean, as Mario pointed out, I mean, these are isolated incidents. I mean, although, the governor of Michigan takes it very seriously and said no open carry at the polls, the fact that the governor has to issue that kind of order, to me at least, is mind-boggling. And you see across the country, again, election officials really being very careful, taking it very seriously, working with law enforcement to have a well-functioning election day and election process. Look, we've been doing this, for decades, for centuries. We've been running elections in this country. And while not perfect, it works. Democracy works. People get to the polls, they vote. Sometimes people get worked up. And we've seen it, right? We've seen the yelling and screaming. We've seen the flag waving. We've seen the bullhorns. Unfortunately, we've seen some incidents of threats. But they're, at least to date, they're few and far between. And, that being said, I'm not trying to take that lightly. We're certainly monitoring it. Law enforcement is monitoring it, and we should continue to do so. But we should not let, that fear deter any one of us from getting to the polls on Election Day. And once we're in that line, one of the things I worry about is sometimes, people say polls are closed, right? You're in line, you get to vote. You vote. You cast your vote. And I think that that's really, really important. And I'm not trying to downplay it, but I really feel like our election officials, you mentioned, our FBI director, we're on it, and we're going to have this election, and it's going to be, fair, and every vote's going to be counted.
Fantastic. I think it's a good time to bring in some of our live callers, and it's my understanding we have one already on the line. Kimberly from Silver Spring, Maryland, from the DMV. Do we have her? Okay. She's coming through. Yeah, let's play. Oh, you got it?
The worst president in history's billion-dollar campaign is failing. Trump is behind in the polls, losing in places he should win, and barely holding on everywhere else. It's looking good, right? Wrong. This isn't over. We're fighting against Donald Trump. We know he'll lie, cheat, suppress the vote, stoke racial hate and economic chaos to win. Trump is counting on you to relax, to stop fighting, to think this election is over. It's not over until his enablers are defeated. We can't take anything for granted. Register, volunteer, get your absentee ballot, vote early, stay in this fight. Your vote and your hard work make all the difference because you know the choice we face, America or Trump. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm ready.
The benefits of having ad geniuses on staff and being a ad-centric organization is that when you have a technical issue, you can just run an ad.
You can play an ad.
You can play an ad. And in the meantime, while everyone was encouraged to not be complacent and still go out there and vote, we now have Kimberly from Silver Spring, Maryland, from the DMV, where I am. I'm on the other side of the DMV in Virginia. Kimberly, welcome.
Hi, and thank you for everything that y'all are doing. Tara, I've listened to you for a few years now, and so I appreciate your opinion, and I always look forward to hearing it. My quick question was, what do you think Democrats should be doing that they're not doing in the lead up to the election?
Is that for me or for Rick?
For both of you.
Well, let me say this. Let me start with this. Right now, they have a gigantic pot of money they're trying to spend very quickly in the states. Don't be shy. Get into Florida. Get into Texas. Get as much as you can into Pennsylvania. Stop the bleeding everywhere in these red states. That North Carolina is actually the one state that Trump has improved his numbers in the last several weeks. It's the one state where he's had a little bit of traction. I'd get into North Carolina. If I were the Democrats, I'd also be working to ensure that African American candidates down the ballot in a variety of places, whether it's Mike Espy in Mississippi, or whether it's Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, or whether it's Pam Keith in Florida, those African American candidates can help turn out votes that Joe Biden needs this year, and that will also help win the Senate. I will say this also, and I said this earlier, never take your foot off the gas. If you're in a campaign, you should die broke. You should be out of money at the end of the campaign. And that campaign is going to be something that we will look back on if we keep the momentum going in all these key states, and never get complacent about it. Never buy into, we're beating Trump's ass. We don't have to get out and vote. We don't have to hustle anymore. The only day we stop hustling is on the day Joe Biden puts his hand on that Bible and swears the oath of office. That's the only day we can stop hustling.
And I'll just add to that quickly. The Democrats need to stop relying on us to take it to Donald Trump, to Rick's point. They have run a really passive campaign, and that's okay. It's working so far for Joe Biden because he's the adult in the room. But they need to make sure that the others, the super PACs that back them up, continue to hammer home how unfit Donald Trump is. I think that they haven't really hit that head on enough to remind people of the suffering that's going on. Joe Biden's beautiful ad that we played earlier today is a wonderful contrast to what's going on. But they also need to have some more targeted ads in these swing states where COVID is through the roof and people are getting sick and dying and field hospitals are being built. There needs to be a reminder of how this didn't have to happen. This was preventable. It did not have to be this way. And it's this way because of Donald Trump's leadership. So I would like to see more of that. I mean, we'll continue to do that as well, but they need to do it too. So.
Right. Well, you're doing a great job.
Let's bring up a tweet. I think we have some tweet. Thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate you coming on. Ask the breakdown to the two lawyers. Is there work in progress to stop, nullify, or minimize Trump's efforts to replace electors, electoral college, with Trump sympathizers? I've read that some Trump loyal governors are helping that effort. We do have in Florida, the conspiracy is running in Florida for DeSantis to bring the legislature back just in case for Donald. We're about to make some people famous on that in a couple weeks or a couple days. So, but anyway, Kathleen, go ahead.
Yeah, Florida, Pennsylvania, you hear that. Again, it gets to be get out the vote. I mean, it's an arcane set of laws about when electors can be replaced or put in basically what else is already in place. But I think it comes down to having people vote, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. And Mario, you may have some additional perspective on it. I think it's one of those conspiracy theories that we should be aware of, but it again distracts us from what we need to do on Election Day. And frankly, also to focus on Election Day, we're not going to have a result on Election Day. I think that's something that we are mindful of and keep pushing out. It takes a lot of time to count ballots, to get results, and each state has a whole bunch of rules around how long it takes to actually certify. So I think we shouldn't take our eye off the prize and what it really means to get out and vote.
Did you have anything to add to that, Mario, before we take the next caller?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a couple of things I want to add. A lot of states actually bind their electors, since that was what we were talking about here. And there was actually a Supreme Court case that came out of my native Colorado this past Supreme Court session that actually said that bound electors you can't have unfaithful electors. You can't change your opinion. So I think that there's some of that we're going to have in there. So when people do win the electors that go are going to be bound to that. So just to be clear, there is some law on that, and I think obviously there's questions about the real questions that come up with Donald Trump are going to be, well, what happens if we don't know what the election is, which is what Kathleen was kind of talking about. Can we just send someone there? One of the things that we have to do, and I think this is one thing Democrats are not doing right now, and they do more of, is educating people on how to vote. And not just going to the polls, but particularly with absentee ballots. We have more absentee ballots being cast than ever before in this country. And a lot of people aren't used to it. A lot of people aren't used to, I've got to sign my ballot. I've got to sign on the back of it. I have to make sure that I put it in a secrecy sleeve. I cannot stress enough that every voter out there who's casting an absentee ballot needs to read all of the instructions that come with that ballot, and they need to follow them. Because what will happen if you don't is it'll go into the county clerk or the elections division, wherever, and they won't count it because they'll say, you didn't include this secrecy sleeve. We were just talking to lawyers in Pennsylvania today who had talked about the fact that their Supreme Court reluctantly had ruled that any ballot that's cast without the secrecy sleeve through absentee ballot won't be counted. I think that's to me that's a tragedy, but apparently that's the way that their statute read. So I think that's one thing Democrats have to be on top of. They have to be stressing to all of these voters that they're turning out, make sure you do it right.
Amen. And if for people who are interested in that, getting into the weeds on what happens with electors, or if there's what happens if a president, if a candidate passes away, and then what happens. Professor Brian Kalt, he is a constitutional law professor from Michigan State University. He's written books on this, and he dives into all of those things. So he's also on Twitter, so you can check him out. It's Kalt, Professor Kalt from Michigan State University. If you're nerdy and into that kind of stuff, he's a good resource for it. All right, we have another caller. Are we ready, or do we need to run another ad? We got her? All right, great. Lynn from Ohio. Welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to say hi. How are you all? I voted by mail-in, drop-off, for the first time in my life. And I just wanted to make a point that maybe some people don't know. Because I asked for a mail-in ballot, when I went down to the polling place early, because you can vote a month in advance down here, when I went to the polling place, they told me that I could only vote provisionally if I wanted to actually go into the booths and vote. And that was because I had requested a mail-in ballot. So I went home, filled out my mail-in ballot, and brought my mail-in ballot down there and dropped it off. And I just wanted to know, are you guys aware that happens in some states? Because obviously, I mean, I'm sure you know what provisional means. I did not want to cast a provisional vote. And if I hadn't asked the question, I would have just gone in, voted, and my vote wouldn't have counted unless they decided at some point they needed it.
Mario, is this something, because every state has different rules, and thank you for that, Lynn, because I think a lot of people are confused about can I go to vote? What if I requested one? What if I decide I want to drop my ballot off? Is there a box? Every state is different. Here in Virginia, you can do all of those things, and they have resources. A lot of states have resources that tell you, make a plan, and then they list out what you can do with your ballot. But Mario, do you want to add to that, or Kathleen?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important what what we're talking about here with provisional ballots and making sure that when we're talking about voting, that you do have that plan, because a provisional vote is still a vote, and every state does it differently, just like you said. But I think one of the things that we really need to look at is your vote needs to count. So keep on going, keep on showing up, do what you need to do. I think you did it exactly right. You went back to your house, you got the absentee ballot, you filled it out, and then you went back to the polls. Every viewer here should follow that sort of a recommendation. You do whatever you need to do to get your vote in and to make it count. And if you've got questions, call your county clerk, call your Secretary of State, call them and ask them. Have them walk you through it. There are actually tons and tons of extra people there right now in every state who are there to help.
Right. It didn't even occur to me. I mean, I'd never voted by mail before. So it didn't even occur to me to ask the question. So I was glad that I asked before I actually cast my vote.
Great. Lynn, thank you so much for that. I think your experience is not unique, and hopefully more folks are aware of that and know to ask, to make sure. That never hurts to ask.
Thank you for coming on, Lynn.
Oh, go ahead, real
thanks.
quick, Lynn.
Hi, Rick.
Do we still have her?
Yeah, just as a side note, the county I live in is Lorraine. And when I got there, when I went back to drop off the mail-in ballot, they had a sheriff and they had a booth and they had people come out to my car and take my ballot and give me a sticker. I mean, they really had their act together. So it was nice. There was no issue at all.
I love that.
I'm
it was great.
thrilled
A lot of
to
American
hear that.
election systems run really, really well.
Yes.
It should hearten you a little bit. So thank you again, Lynn, for coming on. We appreciate you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
It's encouraging to know that there are states that are doing this. And again, this is important to see that it gives people a sense of security, literally, that that states and localities are taking this seriously, and they're not falling for the okie doke of what Donald Trump's trying to sow and the chaos he's creating. As we wrap up tonight, Kathleen, I wanted to give you the last word.
Wow. Thank you for that. I think it goes back to what we've just been saying, and it can't be said enough. Have a plan, know what your state requirements are. What the last woman just said is every state is somewhat different. In some places, you can just bring your absentee ballot and hand it to someone. In some places, you actually have to put your mail-in ballot in the mail. So every state is different. So it's so important to educate yourself about how to cast that ballot and not let sometimes really confusing directions deter you. And I think that was really heartening. I found that really heartening at a time that sometimes things aren't heartening, that people are there to help. The most majority of election officials in this country really want to make sure they feel very personally committed to their voters in there. It's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. It's an American thing to cast a vote, and they want to help and they want to be there. And so it's incumbent upon every single American to understand what the rules are and be persistent and cast your vote, and don't let anything stand in your way.
That's exactly right.
Amen to that.
Exactly right. Well, folks, we're going to have a fairly brief show this evening because we have a big night of frivolity, hijinks, and shenanigans for you tomorrow. So I think we will do our call to action. Tara?
Yes, indeed. A big thank you to Kathleen and Mario. We appreciate your expertise in this area, and hoping that that has given some aid and comfort to our viewers out there. So thank you guys for joining us. And hopefully we won't need you on election day or after. We love you guys, but we really don't, we hope we don't need your services.
Right. Hopefully on the 5th, you're going to be like, I'm headed to the Caribbean. Ouch.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
Oh my goodness gracious. Thanks guys. And in the spirit of our encouraging everyone to keep saving democracy voting, we mentioned it earlier tonight. Mario did a great job, but just a reminder of our See Something, Say Something initiative, csay2020.com. If you see voter intimidation or any type of shenanigans going on, please report it. csay2020.com. It's another great resource as we continue to fight for the protection of our election integrity. And tomorrow night, we have, as Rick said, we are on double duty. We've got a debate. So we have a show at 8:30 and another show post-debate, should be around 11. And we have a really special guest tomorrow. It's a mystery guest. We cannot reveal until the show tomorrow. So make sure you are with us for our special guest tomorrow. And Rick, I think we have a preview of our other sister show, a promo.
I do. Folks, I want to encourage you to tune in every day at 2:30 Eastern to our sister show, Vote for America, hosted by Jennifer Horn and Lisa Seneschal. We are, every day they are bringing on some great guests, and I think they have a really big guest tomorrow that should make some news. I think it's tomorrow, but they every day are very much in the flow of the news about voting in the country, and they give you a really interesting insight into what's happening out there in voter turnout and in the Republican Party's sort of evolution into the Chaos Party, and it's well worth a look.
Indeed, we are full of surprise guests tomorrow, so be sure to tune in to both of our shows. And before we go tonight, we have a clip from our podcast. Ron Steslow interviewed Mike Madrid, talking about trends in early voting.
Yay, Mike Madrid. We love our
That's right. We love Mike Madrid. We put him to work a lot. On that note, thank you guys, and here's the podcast. We'll see you tomorrow night.
What are the trends that we're seeing on the national map that voters should be watching before we dig into the nuts and bolts today?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that early vote, because when you're talking about 14.7 million ballots or whatever it is, and that's about the range, give or take a million. Look, if we hit 150 million ballots cast, that will be a record. I don't think we've surpassed 137, 138 million before. I think, Ron, we're going to hit 160 million this year, which will be historic, but it will also change a lot of what we're looking at in terms of the polling, because nobody is gauging for that kind of a turnout model. And remember, this is some of the criticism of the 2016 polls. It's not that there were shy voters. It's not that there were, the polls were necessarily off. It's just if you don't wait and accurately guess at what the turnout numbers are, everything gets skewed. And that's really more a function. I'm not speaking for every poll, but really that was much more of a function of the turnout model of different demographic groups. There was an overperformance of non-college educated white voters. There was an underperformance of black voters. Yep. That skews the turnout model, and that's why you saw some of what you saw in 2016.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Just watching my algorithms get crushed. I guess I did something to piss off the Instagram gods, so hopefully you're seeing this stuff anyway. We'll do what we can. Talk to you soon.
I am starting to regret my vote for Trump. I know. You guys, I know. I can overlook, and I'm okay with the blatant racism and the crass sexism and the deranged narcissism and pandering to Nazis and supporting pedophiles and proudly bragging about being a sexual predator and openly cheating your employees and mocking the disabled and praising murderous dictators and the constant pathological lying, the petty vindictive cruelty, the staggering ineptitude, the unapologetic corruption, the nepotism, the mob ties, encouraging violence against those that question your authority, the theft of our tax dollars to pay off your mountain of debt and or go golfing. Did I mention the relentless lying? You're a liar. Being a white nationalist, demonizing immigrants, the obvious disregard of the Bill of Rights, lying about whether Russia had hacked our election when you knew all along it had, then lying about it, the collusion with our sworn enemy and the sworn enemy of democracy, your dereliction of duty, your treasonous activities.
I know words. I have the best words.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We will build a great wall along the southern border. And Mexico will pay for the wall. Look at my African American over
I could
here.
stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any votes. I'm smart. I'm like a smart person. Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Winning, 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 winning.
Fake news.
Hillary. Call me. Which
I alone can fix it.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.